The phrase police accountability refers to a system of measures that can ensure control over the police and can ensure that behavior gets corrected and that bad things that are done by the police are remedied and that bad things in the future don't happen. And I say a system because it's necessary to have a number of measures in place, all working effectively in order to create police accountability. The first measure that really springs to mind easily is the idea of making a complaint with the police department, which kicks off a process that some police departments call the internal affairs investigation. And the idea is that a person has a bad encounter with a police officer, and so they go to the police department that employs that police officer, and they make a complaint about what happened. Now, the downside of complaining to the police department is that in Connecticut, such complaints are handled solely by the police department itself. They're entirely internal. And so there's no outside source determining what happens to that complaint, how it's resolved, or how it's investigated. But it can be a useful method, and we need it to be in place and working. The second method of holding police accountable is filing a lawsuit. So lawsuits are a way to get a person whole from what happened. They can get money damages if they're injured or if their property is damaged. But the downside of lawsuits is that a lot of the bad things that happen when people interact with police don't rise to the level of something that the courts would recognize as a legal wrong. The law has developed in a way that tends to favor the police. And so many of the things that are happening in Connecticut that are hurtful to people out there are just not things that can be addressed through lawsuits. That's not to say that lawsuits are useless, and we need that avenue of redress available as well. The third system in any overarching scheme of police accountability is prosecution of instances in which police commit crimes. And so when a police officer takes actions that actually break the law, for example, they kill someone in a manner that's not lawful, we need to have the ability to have that behavior investigated and prosecuted. The drawback is that it's very difficult at the moment in Connecticut, and as we've seen elsewhere, to have prosecutors objectively investigate and then bring police officers to trial. And this is because prosecutors work with police officers every day. And so prosecutors are human beings like the rest of us, and it's not really practical to imagine that they're going to be able to put aside all of their feelings and objectively approach the situation. And so it's a method that needs to work, but it's a method that in Connecticut at the moment isn't quite where we need it to be. The last system that forms police accountability is the idea of a professional conduct board. So if you're a hairdresser, or if you're a barber, or an undertaker, or a lawyer, or a doctor, or any other of the dozens of professions in Connecticut that are regulated by the state, there is a neutral board put together by the state that oversees the way that a person practices a given trade. And so if, for example, a customer of a barber gets cut or gets an infection or is upset at the way they were treated, they have a way to complain to this neutral body that will then investigate the complaint and determine whether or not the barber, for example, made a mistake or violated the rules governing how that person is supposed to be conducting their trade. But unlike barbers and unlike physicians and lawyers, no such thing exists for police officers in Connecticut. And so one of the systems of accountability that really needs to be in place in the future is a professional conduct board that can objectively look at the conduct of police officers, again, from outside of their own department and outside of the prosecutors that they work with, to determine if they're practicing the trade of policing in a way that comports with the rules. All of these things are critical pieces to a system of police accountability.